chairperson of the occasion, Madam Nyima Kamara, Madam Kumbasane, and my colleague at the high table, Madam Sarata from GCCI. Religious and traditional leaders, members of the press, and I also want to recognize Madam Danielle Ajiman from the Wall Movement, members of the press, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols respectfully observed. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be here and to be afforded the opportunity to deliver a statement at the opening ceremony of this very important forum and timely forum on Women Deliver, with a focus on strengthening women's voices in governance and broader society. On behalf of the African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies, it is indeed my pleasure to be here and to welcome in particular the Wall Movement for Democracy once again as a member of the Wall Movement myself and an immediate past president of the Africa Democracy Forum. As you may know, let me say a little bit on the center. The African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies, based here in the Gambia, is an independent, non-profit, pan-African human rights organization, initially established under the distinguished patronage of the former president, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, in 1989 by an act of the Gambian Parliament. Its first governing council chairperson was the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, then Honorable Hassan Boubacar Jallow. However, in 1995, the act was repealed and the center relaunched. The African Center facilitates the upholding and promotion of Article 25 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which supports state parties and other stakeholders to promote and ensure through teaching and education and publications respect of the rights and freedoms contained in the Charter. The African Center works in collaboration with all partners, state and non-state actors, nationally, regionally, and globally in this endeavor. The African Center's mandate is guided by 4 pillars: governance, gender equality, conflict management, and the right to development, which is attained through advocacy, education and training, research and documentation, publications, and networking for human rights in Africa. Given our affiliation to regional and global movements, and as the convener of the Forum of NGOs in the work of the African Commission, we have witnessed various transitions in many countries around the world. Democracy is indeed the way to go. However, it is not a straitjacket, and every nation has the responsibility to carve out their path, guided by the basic principles of justice, of human rights, the rule of law, participation, inclusion, among other things. The Arab Spring has given us impetus to many strains of democracy. Today, Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt are still in the process of charting their own destinies and are providing vital lessons for us to learn. Moreover, we have seen the revolution of citizens standing up for human rights and being counted. From the East to the West, Latin America to the South, the wind of democracy is blowing. The latest we saw was in Sudan. And today, as we speak, we are talking about, even in the Gambia, no problem. These are exciting yet critical times for democracy, especially here in the Gambia, our motherland. Where are we? I asked myself. And following the commitments of ECOWAS, let me remind us where we are coming from. To physically remove the former president who lost at the ballot box from power with the ground forces, the stage was set for the installation of the democratically elected President Adama Barrow. The ECOWAS, under the presidency of Liberia and led by Alan Sirleaf Johnson, had put its resources, its integrity, and reputation on the line to ensure that the Gambian people's voices, through their votes, were heard, and their dream of democracy taking its course was realized. ECOWAS has set a standard. It was the first of its kind to ensure the adherence to democratic outcome of an election and upholding the will of the people. A feat the Gambian population would not have been able to achieve without assistance. The swearing in of President Adama Barrow on January 19th, therefore, took place in an environment where expectations were very high. The Gambian people primarily, his peers regionally and globally, to say the least. Going forward, we have heard from the administration that good governance and human rights, security sector reform, and justice for victims of human rights violations would be important hallmarks to distinguish the Third Republic. Some of the basic facts about Gambia, just to remind ourselves: we are a small population of 2 million people with a growth rate of 3.2% per annum. 63% of the population are under 25 years old. Poverty level is 46%. The literacy rate, we are talking about 55%, but when we look at our female literacy rate, it's only 47%. That is those above 15 years old. More than half of the population live in urban areas. And we also see an equal distribution of population. There is also, it is a parliamentary democracy, as we all know, and we are moving towards the Third Republic. A look at our framework will reveal that the 1997 Constitution provided a framework for strengthening governance processes in the Gambia and address poverty reduction, sustainable development, etc. We do have various laws and policies to address different areas, and by that I am talking about Vision 2020, the Local Government and Finance Act, the National Governance Program, the Women's Act of 2010, the National Development Plan, among others. The state of the Gambia is party to numerous international and regional instruments on various issues, including human rights and governance. However, the government has signed but not ratified the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance, and has not submitted itself to the African peer review mechanism. The state also has recently a backlog of outstanding reports to international and regional human rights bodies, which it has commenced to address. None to the African Commission since '94, but we've seen the report submitted in 2018 and has been considered last year by the African Commission. We've also seen the government of the Gambia submit itself a report to the UPR, the Universal Peer Review at the United Nations. The country had in the past suffered from lack of transparency and accountability, political instability, weak institutions, rampant corruption, impunity, among other ills. The current reforms are in an attempt to address gaps with a view to improving the socio-economic development and political environment of the Gambia and promoting good governance, among other principles, are very welcome. The Gambia, therefore, is at a crucial stage in its democratic transition process, and expectations continue to be high. It is essential that these expectations are met and the authorities that deliver in terms of justice, social and political reforms, and development. A primary conclusion points to the need of the Gambian society to rebuild confidence and cohesion between its ethnic communities on one hand, and in relation to the state institutions on the other hand. National cohesion and trust were severely corroded under the previous regime, and there is need for a new sense of patriotism to be instilled in the people. Allow me to emphasize on the fact that in order for democracy to deliver, we as institutions, civil society organizations, private sector businesses need to come together. That we cannot look to government alone to solve our problems or to find all the remedies to our challenges. All the different sectors and individuals do have a role to play and in advancing the type of policies and reforms that lead to prosperous, safer, democratic societies. Talking on the essence of the Ouagadougou Declaration adopted in January in 2018, there is recognition indeed of the role of governments as well as business, labor, and civil society to promote a peaceful and inclusive society, that promoting good democratic governance will in turn provide economic growth, political stability, development, and security. To come to the main issue that has brought us together today, strengthening women's voices in governance and broader society in the Gambia. In the Gambia, while women comprise 56% of the electoral body, they are seriously underrepresented in elected and appointed bodies. With a female presence of only 7% in the National Assembly, they form less than 23% in local councils and about 17% at the level of the central executive. Gender rights, gender equality rights, present a challenge from multiple perspectives, ranging from deficit in political party participation and representation to a culture of marginalization of women and violations of their fundamental human rights. Moreover, women are discouraged to voice their problems and concerns and are exposed to the constant pressures of a patriarchal society. We must, however, note the importance of women's participation and accept that they must lead in the change in making democracy deliver. Women need to recognize the important role they play in these processes and be provided all the opportunities possible for the benefit of the communities as well as the nation. They need to be encouraged to get out of their comfort zones and reach across the different sectors to find mutual interest in advancing inclusive democratic policies and reforms that benefit us and our communities. And that leads me to the situation in leadership. That worldwide, when we look at parliamentarians, we're looking at 24% that are women worldwide. And when you compare the 7% that Gambia is at, we need to pull up our socks. As advocates of gender equality in Africa, we cannot operate in prescriptions and approximations. gaps of gender inequality must be recorded so that a trail of implementation is clear and decision makers are held to account. According to a study by Plan International, many women and girls between 15 and 24 want to take up leadership at various levels, whether it is in the workplace, politics, and wider society. Yet, 9 out of 10 believe that women leaders will suffer widespread discrimination and sexual harassment, no matter where you come from, and your ability to contribute to change. In that study, 76%, a very high percentage, aspired to be leaders. We also saw that in that study, 60% were confident of their abilities to lead. Yet, 94% believe that being a leader, a woman leader, involved being unfairly treated compared to men. They also believed that 93% of female leaders experience unwanted physical contact. These are some of the challenges that we will have to address as we move towards women delivering. We want to see government efforts complemented in this area. So some recommendations that I want to share include policy changes. Yes, policy changes are taking place, but at a slow rate. We need to do more. These changes are requisite for implementation of these reforms. However, we need to also consider building of capacity of private sector and civil society to enable them make informed choices and put input into policy making, especially the women in those areas in the private sector as well as in civil society. We also want to see the improvement of growth and economic development through the enhancement of networking and building strategic partnerships. You will hear me repeating strategic partnerships, talking about private and public partnerships, and creating a dialogue mechanism is very crucial. Many times challenges occur, not because we do not have the solutions, but because we are not talking about it, there is no dialogue, and we are not even listening to each other. So I believe these are things that we will have to put on the table and put on our agenda as well. We need to reinforce that partnership between government and civil society. As you all know, there is a climate of mistrust that we need to mend if we want to ensure that national development is achieved. Capacity strengthening at all levels and across all sectors is also key. To conclude, I want to say that in spite of all the progress made to attain women's participation and representation, a lot more needs to be done. It is our collective responsibility that we endeavor to, one, change the narrative. We need to change the narrative. Women are moving from vulnerability to being change agents of change and drivers of progress. Investment in women and girls impact positively on communities, on the nation, and on development. And above all, the achievement of the SDGs and Agenda 2063. The Gambia we want would eventually be making a meaningful contribution to the Africa we want. Two, we need to mobilize across sectors, engaging all sectors and generations towards this goal. Three, we need to create inspiring and results-based country actions. Like I said, implementing democracy is not a straitjacket, but we need to ensure that we carve it based on our own needs, based on our own situations. Madam Chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to redefine power as gender activists and recognize our ability to use power for the common good at every level. We should embrace the facts. In a gender equal world, we all stand to gain. We need to strengthen our investments and consolidate our gains. That is our political gains, our economic gains, social gains, call it what you may. And we need to break down structural power and all barriers to progress and attainment of gender equality. Lastly, the power of movements need to be embraced, because in many times you find out that we are working in silos and building empires. It's not helpful. We need to be able to engage all sectors, across generations, and the need to also ensure that we use opportunities to advance gender equality causes. I would like to commend the organizers of this initiative, the World Movement, the CPDE, and the Future in Our Hands. And to also reiterate the African Center's commitment to accompany this process once we agree on the way to go forward. I just wanted to share some outcomes of a study we did in the area of women's political participation. We carried out a study on political party manifestos and constitutions, as well as looking at the 1997 Constitution. What we found out was that on paper, everything looks very beautiful. But when it came to implementation, it's a different story. So ensuring that there's accountability, ensuring that there's implementation, is not the work of only civil society. All our hands must be on deck if we want women to deliver. Thank you very much for your kind attention.